So in the last class, we discussed about power spectral densities, or in general spectral density, that how we compute spectral density from a stationary time series. We saw the properties of spectral density parameter, and we also discussed how we compute spectral density for different processes. For example, we took some simple example for like moving average and autoregressive processes and a white noise and for a white noise. So essentially we were calculating first, if you remember, the autocovariance function from the time domain, and your spectral density is nothing but the Fourier transform of your autocovariance function. And we saw the benefits of going into frequency domain, that we can easily see that which frequency components are dominating, because the spectral density is essentially representing the contribution of different frequency components in your time series, which are contributing to the total variance of the signal. So in this class, we are going to discuss about discrete Fourier transform. So you must have heard this term before, because most of the times when you are performing on your computer, whenever you are computing a Fourier transform on your computer, or using Python or MATLAB or any other programming language, what you are doing essentially computing a discrete Fourier transform. The theory, whatever theory we have studied so far in terms of Fourier analysis, Fourier series and Fourier transform, I was discussing everything like in case of if my ft, or if my function is a continuous function, or it is sort of an analytical function. However, in case of the real data, in practice we do not have such analytical functions. We do not have to compute the Fourier transform or Fourier series for those analytical functions, because what we are having is some measurable quantity that is measured at different instant of time, or it is measured at different places or different locations. So we have in a way like a discrete data. For example, earthquake data is measured at different milliseconds or nanoseconds, not nanosecond but different millisecond, because the sampling is very small these days in terms of 10 to power minus 3 seconds. So you are measuring at every 0.001 second one sample. And similarly, in case of your climate data, you must be having your daily records of temperature or air pressure or something like this. So we do not have in practice the continuous data. What we have, data measured at finite intervals, or data measured at finite points. So as I said, that our data is having values at different points or at different instances of time if it is a time series. So in that case, the Fourier analysis, what we do is called discrete Fourier series analysis, or discrete Fourier analysis or discrete Fourier transform. So in discrete Fourier analysis, we replace Fourier transform by the so-called discrete Fourier transform. So Fourier transform exists for analytical continuous function. For real data, for whatever real data we have, discrete data, what we do is a discrete Fourier transform. So this was the Fourier transform pair which we were having, where you can see this xt is your analytical function or a continuous function, for which we are computing the Fourier transform. This is e to the power minus I omega t, where omega is the frequency component. And then this is the inverse Fourier transform, the below one, where we are getting the inverse Fourier transform, or we are coming back in the time domain once we have g omega in the frequency domain. So this is called a Fourier transform pair, as you know. And this g omega business holds under the condition that your xt is integrable in the limits. So that means that this integration exists, otherwise Fourier transform will not exist. So as I said, you have data at discrete points. So let's assume a periodic function again, but this time this periodic function you don't have like as analytical function a sine omega t. What we have is essentially that data at different instances of time. So for example, this is a sine wave, this is time axis, and this is your ft on y axis, as you can see, I am taking samples at different instants of time, at t1, t2 and t3 at equal intervals of time. So keep in mind these samples are taken. So this we call that we are taking samples from the data. So the data are, this is a sampled version of the data. That's what we call discrete version of the data. So we are not taking at continuous points, but we are taking data at discrete points. So for example, at at t1, at t2, at t3, like this. So if the period of this function is 2 pi, and suppose I am taking n samples or I am taking n measurements, so the time interval or the time instances what will be, they will be 2 pi divided by n, so total number of points multiplied by k. So k will go from 0 to n minus 1 because I am taking sample at each k. So k is tk is the time corresponding to each sample. So we also call that ft is sampled at these points. So this is our sampled version at different points. The function has been sampled. Now let's call that I have a function qt which interpolates this function ft. Interpolation, I hope you understand, or let's call it approximates this function ft. So it is in a way that q at each instant of time k is equal to f at each instant of time, and we can write this qtk as a function because I am telling that this is a function which approximates my data. So suppose you have data points and you write that you have a function which approximates your data, for example, just for example, y is equal to x square or y is equal to x cube. So this is a sort of your interpolating function that is approximating. So I am representing in a way my discrete data in terms of a function. So for example, if this function is like this, qt at each instant of time, it is defined, but we can write it just like as qt because it's function now, and summation over n equal to n equal to 0 to n minus 1 cn e to the power I n tk. So this qt or qtk will be equal to ftk, and I can simply write this as fk. So tk is the time interval, or I'm sorry, the time instant related to each sample. So the time related to 0th sample, the time related to first sample, the time related to second sample. So this is time. Or I can just write this function like the function value at 0th sample, the function value at first sample, the function value at second sample. So just k will be 0, 1, 2, 3 to n minus 1 because we are taking n samples, so we will go to n minus 1 because we are starting from 0. So fk is just the values, sample values at these sample points, and we are saying that qtk approximates this. So we are just writing it as the same thing as I am writing here, that fk will become summation over n equal to 0 to n minus 1 cn e to the power I n tk, where k is again 0, 1, 2, 3 to n minus 1. So if you see in this equation, for each value of n, e to the power, this exponential term e to the power I n tk is known because tk is also known to you, because corresponding to kth sample you know what is the value of time in your data. So you know tk, you know n. What we don't know is cn. So we have to estimate cn in such a way that given the data, so fk is given to you, e to the power I n tk is known, you have to determine cn. So it's kind of a regression problem again, but we know we can do it in a much simpler way by using the orthogonality properties of the trigonometric function. So in this case, e to the power I theta, this orthogonality property we are going to use. So what I will do, this equation we have, I will multiply it both sides by e to the power minus I m tk, like we did in case of Fourier series when we were estimating an and bn. So what we were doing, we were multiplying first by cos nx, and then next time to determine an, and the next time to determine bn we were multiplying it by sin nx. So because we could essentially use the orthogonality properties of sines and cos, so the same thing we are doing here. So I multiply this top equation by e to the power minus im tk on both sides, as you can see here, and I carry this because fk is our sample point, so I do this summation from k equal to 0 to n minus 1 fk e to the power minus im tk. I am putting in summation sign outside. Here one summation is already, then another summation is over k now, k equal to 0 to the power k equal to 0, the summation from k equal to 0 to n minus 1, and the inner summation is from over n from n equal to 0 to n minus 1 cn. So if it is e to the power minus im tk, so we can write it e to the power n minus m, so tk will be common, is equal to tk we can replace now. So tk was written 2 pi k by n, if you remember. tk we were writing 2 pi k by n, so this tk we can replace here. So this will become e to the power cn is coming outside with this summation, and we are writing summation k equal to 0, summation from k equal to 0 to n minus 1 e to the power I n minus m 2 pi k by n. So what I can do, I can write this e to the power n minus m 2 pi k by n as e to the power I n minus m 2 pi by n and k whole power, so that I can write this inside value as r. So what I will get is summation over k equal to 0, this summation over k equal to 0 to n minus 1 rk, and this is again a geometric series, so the sum of this will be 1 minus r to the power n divided by 1 minus r. And I am saying that if for n, when n is not equal to m, this value will become 0, because for this case when n is not equal to, because n and m both are involved there, if you see here n and m are both involved, so in that case what will happen, this r to the power n will become equal to 1. Why? Because r to the power n is going to become e to the power I n minus m 2 pi n. So this was already there, if you remember, e to the power n minus m 2 pi k by n. 1 n has come from here because the summation has brought 1 n here. So this n and this n will get cancelled. So what it will become, e to the power I n minus m 2 pi. Now for any values of n and m, because n and m are integers, so any value of n and m, you can write it r to the power n, it will always be 1, because cos 2 pi will be involved and sin 2 pi will always be 0. So whether it will become 2 pi, whether it next time it will become 4 pi, because it is 2 pi term it is involved here. So r to the power n, that is how it is going to become 1. So in that case, for n is not equal to m, we have that summation was becoming 0, because r to the power n was becoming 1, as you can see, so the entire thing was becoming 0. For the case when n is equal to m, so the entire thing you can see here, for n is equal to m, what will happen, this entire thing will become 0. So essentially you are summing 1, e to the power 0 is 1, you are summing 1 from 0 to n minus 1. Essentially what you are doing, that you are summing 1 n times, so it will be just n. So for the case of n is equal to m, it will be 1. So fk will become now summation over n equal to 0 to n minus 1, because this summation is still there, cn is still there, e to the power I n tk. This e to the power summation thing, we have already written that this term will become equal to this term will already become equal to n, because you saw this is Cn is there, and this term will become equal to n. Essentially this entire thing will become equal to n. I'm sorry, so this entire thing, so this equation is coming later. So from here we are going down, so from here we are coming down. So integration over k equal to 0 to n minus 1 fk e to the power minus I m t k was there, because this was on this side. If you check here, this was on this side. This summation, the k summation over k has become n. So this is n Cn, because for all other n not equal to m, it will be 0. It will be n only when n is equal to m. So we can write Cn is equal to 1 by n summation over k equal to 0 to n minus 1 fk e to the power minus I n t k for n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3 up to n minus 1. So that is what we call a discrete Fourier transform. You can easily see that this is your input data, your time series data fk. E to the power minus I n t k is your this exponential function, complex variable, and what we are getting Cn, and these are total number of samples what you have taken. So this is called discrete Fourier transform. You can see it looks like similar to our continuous version of Fourier transform, but actually what your computer is doing this this analysis. It is performing this formulation to compute your Fourier transform. We will see one example. So this Fourier transform will have inverse Fourier transform again. So in that case, I didn't write it here, but fk will be summation over n equal to 0 to n minus 1 Cn e to the power plus in tk, where again k will go from 0, 1 to n minus 1. So this you remember, tk we have written 2 pi k by n, because in the complete 2 pi period we were taking total n samples, so where k is going from 0 to n minus 1. So this we can write as your, I'm writing Cn, so I'm just writing Cn in a different way. Fn, which is the Fourier transform, discrete Fourier transform of your data, 1 by n summation over k equal to 0 to n minus 1. So I have written just 1, so there is a typo, so it should be n minus 1. So I wrote minus but forgot to write 1. Fk e to the power minus n, 2 pi n k divided by n. So you see that if I take this out as one entity, so it can become like a matrix, because summation is also involved here. If we, for time being, if we ignore 1 by n, we can see that it can become a sort of matrix multiplication thing. So I am writing e to the power minus 2 pi divided by n as omega n. So this e to the power minus I 2 pi divided by n is omega n. So every time we will be multiplying it by nk. So I am writing this e nk is equal to omega nk. So k is your data points, samples in your data point. So your input data has a particular value at each k. So I am writing this as a column vector here, f0. It is starting from f0, f1, f2, f3, fn. So this is your input data. You are writing it in a column version. On the left hand side is the Fourier transform. So if your input data has 10 points, your Fourier transform will also have 10 points. So f0 cap or f0 hat, f1 hat, f2 hat, f3 hat, that is up to fn hat. And how are we getting? This is this matrix, what I am calling ENK matrix. So you can easily see that how we are performing this summation over like this. So when I am looking for first frequency, the component corresponding to first frequency or zeroth frequency, let's call it, when n is equal to 0. So when n is equal to 0, your k is this, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is your input data. So when n equal to 0, what is happening? This part omega n is becoming 1, right? So for all k's, it will become 1, 1, because whatever value of k, n is 0, so 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So it will also have this will be a row of all ones, and these dimension of this row will also be n, because we have n data points. We are multiplying it with number of k's. Next time what will happen, you have n equal to 1 and k will start from 0, so this will be 0 for corresponding to n equal to 1. K is also 1, so in this case n is equal to 1, so this will become, you just put it here, k is equal to 1, n is equal to 1, so this will be omega 1 omega n. Next time n is equal to still 1 but k has become 2, so this will be omega square. Similarly, like this it will go up to n minus 1. In next one again k is 0 corresponding to this, because this is 0th thing. So then we are getting a matrix like this, and you can see that this row will get multiplied with this column, and then we will sum it up. So we are performing essentially the same sum. So that's why I'm able to write it in the form of matrix. Similarly, this f1 we will get when this row, entire row will get multiplied with this column. Similarly, f2 we will get when this second row, and this is first, second, third row will get multiplied with this entire column. And we will change our e and k according to n and k. So k is corresponding to your data points, and n is these values corresponding to these values in your Fourier. This is your output. This is your Fourier discrete Fourier transform. So it is easy to do matrix multiplication in your computers, because matrix multiplication it can be easily done. So that's why discrete Fourier transform is easy to do. I'm sorry again, I don't know why it is going like this. So now we will see one example. Exactly, we will perform this analysis, and you can easily compute by hand a discrete Fourier transform. So you don't have to worry. You can take a help of your Python or whatever you are using, or R or MATLAB, but you can do it by hand for smaller number of samples. So I will show an example for a smaller number of samples where you can do it by hand, but when you have like 10,000 samples in seismic data, or 1,000 in climate data, or 10,000 or 100,000 like samples you have, then you cannot do it by hand, of course. Then you have to do it by computers. Even your computers will become slow when you have really large number of samples or large number of n. In that case, in order to make this algorithm fast, because there are many multiplications are involved here, because if you have, imagine you have 10,000 samples, so this matrix is becoming 10,000 by 10,000, and you are every time you are doing multiplication n square times, because 10,000 times this will multiply, 10,000 times this will multiply, 10,000 times this will multiply, so you are at least doing n square multiplications. So for example, we are taking a simple example. So ftk, this is your input data. As I said, there are 4 samples, 1 2 3 4, and the values of your measured quantity at those samples are 0, 1, 4 and 9. So these are the value of the function. They are not the sampling, your sample indexes. Sample index will always be 0, 1, 2, 3, because there are 4 samples. So 0 value of your function corresponds to the 0th index, first value corresponds to your first index, 4 corresponds to your second index, 9 corresponds to your third index. So there are 4 samples, and these are your function values. Now we have to compute what do we call discrete Fourier transform, and we will just use this matrix formulation where I have written, as you see, omega n is equal to e to the power minus 2 pi, and because I have simplified this thing here, and we will do the same thing here. So e to the power minus 2 pi I n k divided by this capital N number of samples, we can write it, this part we can write omega, so I am not writing it omega n because I know already it is 4. So e to the power minus 2 pi I n, so this will be 4. So if I am writing n is equal to 4, so my omega will be e to the power minus 2 pi I divided by 4, e to the power minus I pi by 2, this will become e to the power minus I pi by 2, which is essentially cos pi by 2 minus I sin pi by 2, essentially minus I. So my omega is minus I. So my E and K element of this matrix will become minus I power nk. Now I can write, right? So if n is equal to 0, this will be 1. If k is equal to 0, this will be 1. Depending upon n and k, the value of n can go from 0 to 3. The value of k can go from 0 to 3. So it will be a 4 by 4 matrix. So these are your input values. Here we were writing the values from the input data, your time series, for example. So this will be just omega 0 in this case, and this first column will also be omega 0. Then these will be omega 1, omega 2, omega 3, omega square, omega 4, omega 6, omega cube, omega 6, omega 9. So you can see this here, this generalized version here. So essentially your computer is also doing the same thing. So then we write the elements like here, from here 1, 1, 1, minus I, minus. So this you can see how these came. Then we perform this matrix multiplication. So what I get, f1, f2, f1 hat, or I should better write it f0 hat, f2 hat, f3 hat. That's it. 14 minus, so these are your summed values. So you get your discrete Fourier transform. So your discrete Fourier transform will have the same number of samples as your input data. So you had 4 data points, your Fourier transform will also have 4 data points. The interesting thing will be is that you see, as I said in the very beginning of my class, or my first class, that your Fourier transform which you compute in your computers, it will be a complex number. As you can see here, it is a complex number because e to the power minus 2 pi I thing is involved there. So this is a complex number. So when it is a complex number, it will have an amplitude, which is, because this complex number we can write z equal to r to the power r e to the power I theta. The amplitude will be x square plus y square, and the phase term theta will be the phase term which represents your phase behavior of your time series. That is tan inverse of y by x. So output of your discrete Fourier transform is going always to be a complex number. If you need amplitude spectrum, then you have to take mod of that. If you need phase spectrum, you can just give, or you can just divide the imaginary part by the real part, or you just in Python give arg. So I think that will give you, or the angle of your Fourier transformed output, that will give you the phase, because sometimes people are interested in the phase information also. So this is about discrete Fourier transform, the theory involved in discrete Fourier transform. In the next lecture, I will be discussing about a method, algorithm which makes this DFT calculation very fast, because as I said, there are n multiplied by n square multiplications are involved there, because every time you have, like if you have 10,000 data points, you are multiplying it 10,000 times, next time also 10,000 times, next time also 10,000 times. So it is n square multiplications are involved there. So in order to make this faster, algorithm was suggested which called fast Fourier transform. We will discuss this briefly, that how, because your computer, you also see when you tell it FFT, you always get FFT. So FFT is essentially giving you DFT. So FFT is a method of computing discrete Fourier transform because it is a faster algorithm. Here we are, if we do it in that way, it takes a lot of time, and FFT does it in microseconds or milliseconds. So in the next class, we will see fast Fourier transform algorithm, and then I will directly go to the periodogram, because periodogram is just calculated from the discrete Fourier transform of your time signal. And as I said in the previous class, periodogram is a representation or is a sample estimator of your power spectral density.